call the meeting to order at 7:04. Elizabeth, would you like to lead us in the flag salute?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Suzanne, would you please call the roll call?
Trustee Villalobos?
Here.
Trustee Berdal?
Here.
Trustee Shiokari?
Here.
Trustee Levin?
Here.
And Trustee Gold? Here. Thank you.
Thank you. The district digitally records the audio portion of the meetings. The recorder is located in front of the board scribe. All recordings are kept in the superintendent's office for 30 days and are available during that time period for inspection by members of the public on district equipment without charge. As a community service, Pacifica Community Television records and broadcasts meetings. Report out on closed session topics. The board met in closed session regarding conference with labor negotiator agency, employee organizations, CSCA, public employee performance evaluation, title superintendent. No action was taken. Approval of the agenda and consent agenda. All items on the consent agenda will be approved with one motion which is not debatable and which requires a unanimous vote for passage. If any member of the board, the superintendent, or the public so requests, any item shall be removed from this section and placed in the regular order of business following approval of the consent agenda. Any requests? Okay. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda and agenda?
I'll move to approve the consent agenda.
Second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Board passes 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you. Communications. This portion of the agenda is available to the public to address the board on any issue that is not on the agenda. The maximum time allowed for any speaker is 3 minutes. LSEA? CSEA? No cards. People wishing to address the board? Correspondence?
Yes, I've received a few correspondence over the last few weeks. Dear Pacifica School Board and supporters, belatedly, thank you for inviting me and my husband, Pat Flynn, to the Alna Flynn Volunteer Award. It means more than you know, keeping loving memories of his mother alive. See you next year. Sincerely, Noreen and Pat Flynn. And I really made sure that Nicole saw it because she just puts all of that together. And just a fabulous event, and with Tom and his emceeing, and it's just a delightful evening. So I know you all know. I also received communications from the Veteran Affair Department, and it's around the Legacy program, and they have a project called Buffalo Soldiers Film Project. And Laura Vuskovic of Velimar applied for the grant and was awarded it, and so she will be part of this research group in their class in developing this the information around Buffalo Soldiers, and it is in relationship to the National Cemetery Administration's Veterans Program. So I think that that's an exciting piece for the students to be able to see. Last, we did get information, or I did get from Josie that they're completing our TRAN request, and it has been approved. And I just want to note that the district did receive a rating of SP1+, which is the highest short-term rating in the S&P rating scale. And I just really think that we need to we know that Josie just leads us very well in relationship to the budget, and I want to just thank her and guiding us through this whole project. You know, budget is always hard and difficult. It takes a lot of balancing and looking at not only the numbers, but what's behind the numbers. And Josie is always part of that conversation and supports us all the time. And she doesn't say yes all the time. I just want everyone to know that. So thank you, Josie. I think that is just, you do such incredible work.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you, Josie. Board Superintendent Communications.
I can start.
Okay.
I didn't do anything this week.
You do a lot.
It seems like I was caught up with my teenagers because they're all out of high school.
See, you do a lot.
So, but, you know, tomorrow and Friday.
Yeah.
Laverne, you stole my thunder. I don't have too much to report this week either. It's been a very busy week at work.
I just have to ditto what, I did all the things that they did. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I'm going to graduation tomorrow, so.
Oh, yeah. Actually, Kathy and I both at the CSEA, LSEA end of the year party yesterday, which was a lot of fun, and then it should be. So it was enjoyable last year too, and it was nice to see all the teachers and everybody there. And then today at 4 o'clock was IBL's graduation. And so that was, with several graduations to go this week. But IBL was the first one today.
Yes, I also celebrated with LSEA and CSEA and the IBL graduation today, which had some amazing speeches. It was really very moving to hear these young people, you know, getting ready to step off into high school, so confident. But so two things that I wanted to highlight. One is I stopped by Ocean Shore and ran into Mike Taylor, who does our Spark Poetry, and they've actually this year produced a book.
Oh, wow.
Which I had to buy. And it's funny because I was reading through, they have amazing sort of graphics and a lot of the poetry, spoken word. But it was funny reading through these because I was thinking of the times I've heard these students speak. And of course, the printed word is powerful, but when you hear them with their passion speaking it, it's really quite incredible. So when I get done reading it, I'll put it in our little board library. If any of you want to take a look, it's really something. So that's exciting for them. And then the other item I wanted to highlight is if you get a chance, Ocean Shore parent April Euland, along with 8th grade art teachers and the 8th grade class have taken the Ocean Shore logo and made it into this gigantic display out in front, mosaic display. And Tim Van Rappahorst, who's also does the art there, they not only used broken pieces of tile or whatever, they also made tiles with inspirational words and things and incorporated it. And our maintenance folks got involved and helped them put it up, and it's on display now. Is it completely finished?
It's
all grouted and
all grouted. It's just beautiful.
it is beautiful. It's right in front of the library when you first go into the school. So it's really an amazing art piece. So I just wanted to highlight that and suggest that when you get a chance, you take a look. It's really beautiful. So thank you to all of our parents and our kids and our maintenance. You know, that collaboration really created something beautiful for years ahead. So that is my spiel.
And so, too, I was able to go to the celebration, and the nice thing is Fran Pertini was there, Sandy Franco, so some of the people who will be retiring. I don't know if I saw anybody else retiring there. So it's a nice end of the year celebration, but it's also to highlight them and give them their last opportunity to say goodbye, and we'll see you later, actually, because I'm sure we'll see them around. The IBL promotion was, the students did such a fabulous job with their speeches, and I know that the rest of our promotions that we will be seeing throughout this week will also be inspiring. Just very kind words, and what really resonated with me was the fact that they focused on how they built relationships and how they learned how to work with each other and to get to know each other, and how giving people are. And so that really makes me feel like we've done a good job in our district in guiding our students. We will be gearing up now for our summer school programs, so we will have some math programs going on at IBL, and then we received a grant, A-Learn. Hopefully some of our students will be going to that at Jefferson Union High School District. We have K2K, which you'll be hearing about from Hildert this evening, and of course we have our extended school year happening at LMEC, so we have a lot going on in the summer as well. That's it.
Thank you. District business. District goals. The district values the goals provided in our local control accountability plan and strategic plan. All of our district board agenda items are tied to these goals. One or more goals are listed in the description of each board agenda item. The details for each of those district goals can be accessed on our Agenda Online public page or by visiting the district website, www.pacificasd.org, under District Information Board of Trustees. Feasibility study for general obligation bond contracts for Godby Research and TBWB Strategies goal operations. Wendy?
So I bring before you a recommendation for 2 contracts with Godby Research and TBWB Strategies. And the impetus of it was from our May 31st work study, where we really talked about the district financial analysis in relationship to facilities. You know, we learned at that meeting that there are 2 methods that districts can use to support facilities. One is the general obligation bond, and the other is the general funded backed debt. The general funded backed debt, sometimes known, we refer to as the COP, that's an option that we have, is really for our Odstad workforce housing. So that's a separate issue altogether. But with the general obligation bond, which is we have bonds throughout the state of California, that's used for capital facility improvements. And at this particular time, Pacifica School District's last bond was in 1997. And as we look further into, and that helped us with the modernization project, we have beautiful facilities, but the problem with beautiful facilities is you also have to keep them up. And so we have been doing our best with the painting and providing technology to our students, but doing so through the LCFF funding and our parcel tax and the help of foundations, and it's just not enough. We just cannot keep pace. And so knowing that the state really does not fund facilities for schools, one of the only ways to go about doing that is, again, to go to the community and talk about a general obligation bond. So in our audience tonight, we do have Charles Hester from Godby Eaton Research, who will answer questions for you. But I think our first step would be, as we all know, like our parcel tax, is to do a feasibility study, determine the community, what the community thinks and can support, and then based on the findings we can move forward. In order to do that, We've done work with Godby Research and TBWB in this facility feasibility phase, and I would recommend that we would continue with these two companies, organizations. They know our community. We've worked well together, and I think that we would get great feedback and information from them. They have provided us information that has guided our parcel tax to renewal, 3 actually. The first one was with Godby, and then 2 renewals. So with that, are there any questions?
Doesn't sound like there are questions.
I have just one question. So I read through this, and thanks. So my understanding is that TBWB would be developing the survey items, and then you guys would be administering it and doing the analysis. Is that correct?
It's
roughly?
more of a collaborative process.
Okay.
So we'd be developing the survey questions with both TBWB and a likely bond subcommittee. If you've convene that, we would recommend that. If not, and it's an iterative process, and there's certainly multiple points for input and review and approval, so that we can get this to the best that we think it can be before we go into the field. It's a similar process.
In your process, do you regularly do cognitive testing on surveys or not?
I mean, we really don't do
Just
a lot
wondering.
of cognitive testing. I think that
Pretty straightforward questions.
Yeah, they're pretty much straightforward questions. We're sort of going to test the plan at this point and nuances of that, so that the district does elect to put a measure on the ballot at some point. It sort of meets that intersection of needs of the district as well as the expectations of your community.
Okay, thanks. And I was a consumer of I was involved in the last parcel tax renewal, so.
There you go. I haven't been here since, I want to say, before the 2011 poll, and I do want to say that Brian will be working on this project. He's at the City of Burlingame tonight doing some council briefings. I was in Foster City discussing a similar situation for them, and I apologize for being late, but it looks like I'm just in time.
I know, I'm getting kind of like, oh, I got to answer all these questions.
I don't think anybody at home heard what he said. So.
Oh, sorry, we should have had you go to the.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Sorry about that.
Oh.
Sorry.
It was a very good answer.
See if I can recreate it. Hi, so again, I'm Charles Hester with Godby Research, and I believe the first question is how the questions are developed. Again, similar to the parcel tax processes last year in 2011 and even going back to 2008, it's really a collaborative or iterative process between TBWB, the district, and Godby. So we'll format the questions in a method or a way that would be appropriate for the survey process. TBWB will certainly lend their expertise, having worked with the district before, as well as probably on hundreds of bond measures and parcel tax measures for school districts. And obviously there's the district and the district subcommittee, and you guys certainly bring the local expertise and what's going on in the district in a way that neither TBWB or Godby could ever know.
Thank you.
Sure. And the last question.
The second question was just, do you test the items?
Yeah. So we don't do a lot of cognitive testing. What we'll do is we'll do a first ballot test of the potential measure. We'll look at the features of the measure in terms of how the money would be spent. We'll look at arguments for and against. We'll look at different rates for the measure, assuming that, and if you just want to do the 30 per 100,000 with the limit that you could do for a Prop 39 bond, but we'll test different rates in terms of assessed valuation, and then we'll look at the ballot question again and do voter demographics and whatnot. And really what that's designed to do is look at a campaign. The first ballot test is the voter that might just walk in on election day and not having read anything, where the series of information gets down to the second ballot test is the voter that is going to vote and read every piece of material or literature that comes out regarding the bond, whether that's in an informational capacity or an advocacy capacity.
Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions? Thank you. I don't have a question, but I do have a comment that it surprised me when I heard it had been 20 years since our last bond.
Yeah.
my first thought was,
Really?
we're doing a bond, but then when I heard 1997, and then I think just looking at one roof project we've done and the rest that are lined up, I think that's a clear indication of how much we need to get this additional funding to keep our school sites safe and up to date, so. Anything else? So this is action. Okay. So is there a motion to move forward on the feasibility study for the general obligation bond? Okay, a second? All in favor?
Board passes 5-0, thank you.
Thank you.
So may I add, because I didn't know, dependent upon the direction we've taken, this is a very short timeline. Brian was suggesting that they try to get out to the field in August, end of August, so that we can get a sense of direction that we want to take. So we already have a facilities projects list, which far surpasses what probably we would get in a first bond anyway. But we also want to to couch it with our vision in what we see as our facilities master plan, or the beginnings of a facilities master plan, as we started to put a draft together. So I'm looking to go to our principals probably next week and trying to pull a committee of community members, like our PTO presidents, maybe PEF, whoever can attend that following, or that maybe the Wednesday after, like 19th, 21st, for an evening meeting, and then try to get to Godby research this kind of vision, big idea process. So in doing that, we would then get together again at the beginning of August and finalize our questions, as making sure that it really tests the way we want. We probably will bring it back then to the larger committee, and then they'll go to the field. So if we could have 2 board members maybe who would serve on the executive committee, which also is that larger committee as well. We kind of do little, and then we go big, and then we go little again. That would be probably helpful to get your perceptions of what we should do. So,
I'd like to.
I would love to be involved, but the timeline, I'm going to be away for 3 weeks, so.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think that, sorry.
No, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, Andrea said she would, and Elizabeth?
Thank you. Hey, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. Have a good evening.
Thank you for having me.
Okay. 9B, Early Learning Program Close the Gap Grant, LCAP Goal 1, 2, and 3. Will?
Yes, so I'm going to introduce Hilda Carlin. Hilda Carlin is our early learning program coordinator. She took over for Christine Thorstenson. Am I saying that right?
Thorstenson.
Thorstenson. And she's done a wonderful job so far. And she's going to present about and share information about our early learning program. So let me pull up the...
Okay, so that's me. Can you hear me?
Do you have a clicker?
Oh, I have the clicker, so what do I do? This is for me? Okay. Okay, so I was hired in February, and in March, we got the opportunity to apply for a Close the Gap grant, and we got the grant in April, and the funding cycle began April 15th. And the purpose of the grant really is to mostly build on work that's already happening in your district, because you guys are fortunate to have already seemed to have understood that early childhood education is very important and really paves the way for success down the road in school. So this grant just really here is outlined what it adds and builds on that we already have. Specifically, I thought I should say a little bit about the ELPN, is the Early Learning Partners Network, which existed, but I think kind of hadn't really happened for a year. And we met this past spring, and it is people from the area preschools, your TKs, Ks, first graders, and some administrators from the district. And the purpose mostly for the get-togethers are to both sort of create a collaborative environment so that the people from the area preschools and the district people can collaborate and get to know each other. And then it's also an opportunity for some professional development. So we'll be continuing with 2 of those a year, one in the fall and one in the spring. And then in addition, we're going to add some 2 more professional developments that will be determined through meetings with this group and looking to assessment data at what those will be about. This is just a little bit more about what will be happening, I guess more specifically at the school sites. There hasn't been a buddy system here, so we're looking at getting a pre-K and a K classroom buddy system. Also getting I talked to Will and found out that the preschool staff that you already have at the school sites hasn't really been included in all the school activities and meetings. So to get them more lined up with the school staff so that they're, it's just like the more we can do to get the pre-Ks knowing what's expected in K, the more ready the kids will be for K. And then, of course, the Kickoff to Kindergarten program, which I understand you've had for 15 years. That is what I have spent a lot of the spring on. We are pretty much ready to go. There will be about, I think, 84, 85 kids coming on Tuesday to start. The program's pretty much continuing as is, since I pretty much had to hit the ground running. One thing I want to look to next year is a way to meet more of the targeted kids that the program was designed for, because I did feel that just using the kindergarten registration materials wasn't necessarily early enough. So I'm looking to find other organizations in the community that might be tapped into families that would be really who we want to get in this program, which we have a good number of, but I think we could do better. Another thing we introduced this year is a texting program called Ready for K. It was brought to the ELPN gathering, so some of the area preschools are already using it. And I introduced it at the orientation meetings for the Kickoff to Kindergarten program. And I currently have the forms and will be enrolling all the parents that were interested that are parents of incoming kindergartners for this fall. It's a great little tool. It's just a simple texting program where they get little text prompts with tips of activities they can do at home easily in the store, getting ready for bed that have, literacy and math skills in particular. The parents seem pretty excited about that, and the preschool teachers were really excited about it. And that's it, unless you have any questions.
I have questions. I'm not sure
Sure.
if you or will be answering these, but I'll throw them out. First of all, in another lifetime, I was a preschool teacher, so I love this. So on the Close the Gap Pre-K3 grant supports, the 4th bullet talks about providing teacher-specific PD 4 times yearly based on areas of need established. And my question is, for these teachers, is this an additional requirement on top of our usual PD day?
So it's not a requirement. first.
Okay.
So, but it is offered and it is funded through the Close the Gap grant.
Mhm.
But it's offered as an opportunity for them to have professional development around bridging that pre-K to K
Mhm.
piece. There are 4 total, right?
Yeah, well, two
Two
are
more of a network.
2 are like an evening more social. We have food and they're more of a networking, but then we had one in the spring, and then there's a professional development component of the evening. And it's had a pretty good turnout, a better turnout right now from the preschools than the district staff. So I'd like to work on that too. And then the goal is to have 2 more, and it's kind of to be determined, the timing and, but.
And the 2 more were gonna be more specific to what Pacifica, what
Needs.
supports they need Pacifica.
Yeah.
So the goal of the idea is those 2 additional ones are, again, they're not mandatory, but they'll be excited to want to go to it. And they'll be paid when they get there, and it'll be out of the grant. So we're trying to have it a way where it's focused on Pacifica and specifically. So so that's the point of it.
Okay. I love the public and private preschool partners invited to the PDs because we've talked about our outreach, so I'm really happy to see that. As I am happy to see about fostering the collaboration between the preschool partners and PSD because, this used to be something with our special ed, some of our special ed classes of being on site, but sort of separate. So I love the fact that we're talking about integrating any student on our sites in the school environment. The other question I had is on the kickoff to kindergarten. It lists mandatory parent orientations include a parent education component. So my question is, if these are mandatory, what if you have 2, I would imagine some of these students might have 2 parents who are working. So can another adult or somebody else attend those orientations?
They can, and quite honestly, they can still come to the program. I have some families that didn't attend and they're still coming. I email them information.
So then it's not, so why are we calling it mandatory if it's not really mandatory?
It's probably more wording for the parents than for us, because they might not come.
But might that scare off some parents that say, well, I can't make it, so I'm not going to bother?
I mean,
to
can
the
we
whole
look at
program?
another, like,
I don't
an
know,
essential parent orientation,
Yeah,
or
we
necessary? I just feel like that
Highly
mandatory late,
encouraged.
highly encouraged. I mean, I understand what you're saying because you really want them to come,
Yeah.
but I just really feel we need to follow through on what we're saying we're doing. So if we're
Okay.
saying it's mandatory and it really
Yeah.
isn't mandatory,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, and I agree. And so I think that if you do feel it mandatory, I think what I'm also hearing is what Hilda will do is reach out to those families who have not attended the orientation, or they're calling her to
Yeah.
say, I cannot
Yeah.
go. So she does the orientation over
Yeah.
the phone, or it's not ideal, but
Yeah.
at least they get oriented to the program, because then they'll kind of know what's going on and,
Yeah.
the rules of the game and all
Well,
of
and
that.
there's a parent ed component to the orientation, so that's the reason for really wanting high attendance.
So,
The idea is for it to be a positive experience because it is a bridge program from.
Sure.
So you want it to be a positive program there, but I do see what you're saying about the mandatory, because it's technically not mandatory.
Yeah.
But the idea, and Hilda's been really thinking about this and working through this idea, is there's gonna be there's gonna be more of a recruitment piece for those targeted populations that we want in the program. Those families that would really benefit, not only the child, but the family would benefit their child being in this K program. So when it turns into that recruitment more piece, then it's gonna be more of like, connecting with those families and doing the orientation over the phone, or actually encouraging them to come to it. The other question you asked is there any, if the parents can't make it, if there's someone else representing the family, they're more than welcome to.
Yeah, there
That's-
were
that's
quite a
what
few
we-
grandparents
Okay.
there too. Yeah. which is
Yeah,
nice.
yeah.
That's been communicated on the flyer.
Okay.
But the word mandatory isn't there. It's just like, fifth grade outdoor ed, I always had a mandatory meeting. I
Right.
wasn't gonna turn away a kid.
Right.
So, you're right, it's not right.
But if you are doing this additional outreach, that is another type of orientation, so I can see that component is still involved.
Yeah.
But, Yeah, the question is too, though, is anyone looking at that and saying, well, I can't make the mandatory, so I can't attend? So as long as that's also being addressed, that there's no parent feeling or family feeling they can't attend because they
I
can't
didn't hear that
attend
at
the
all.
meeting.
Yeah, no, I didn't hear
Okay.
that.
You put small little print at the bottom. It's only used for-
Well, and usually if you buffer it with, let me know, I do a lot
Sure.
of, let me know if, because there were 4 orientations, and by the last one, I actually was encouraging people that had missed from the earlier ones to come to the last one. And at that point, you really do say, and let me know if you can't come, because there's some information that they really need that's part of the program, and then I really want them there for the parent ed.
And we want to start our parents
Yeah.
being involved, so
Yeah, yeah.
that's important. Thank you.
So there's about 85 out of the 100 slots that are filled? Did I
Yeah,
catch that right?
Cabrillo is very under-enrolled. I don't know your schools well enough yet to know if that's typical or...
I don't either.
Yeah.
I'm almost as new as you.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, it's very, Cabrillo's the very under-enrolled school this year.
Any other questions or comments? No?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
9C, Integrated Services Presentation, LCAP Goal 1, 2, and 3. Ray?
Okay. So presenting with me tonight is Jennifer Gray, Director of Lindemar Education Center. Thank you for being here. So integrated services, first I want to just note integrated services, the title, what that represents. That's special education and student services combined, integrated services. So the goals for tonight, we'll talk about special education, give the board some updates, student services, and then we'll discuss next steps going into our new school year for 17-18. Special education sits on the foundation of our inclusion definition. This definition was approved by the board back in 2014. This definition was made by over 50 stakeholders in our district at the time, a nice cross-representation of community members, staff, and even students. And we live and breathe this wonderful definition. It's also in our board policies. So students receiving special education services in the district, you'll see that we have had a spike in 2016-17 for RSP, which is the acronym for Resource Specialist Program. These are students that either get pulled out or have push-in services into their general ed classroom for a specific academic area. Usually it's around English language arts or math. Approximately an increase of 15 students across the district for this year. The rest of the programs, and I apologize to the board for the acronyms, but special SDC is for special day class. These are students that are enrolled in a more restrictive setting. Speech services. SKIA, this is Special Circumstance Instructional Assistant, and we do have approximately 14 students that have that support throughout the district. ABA is Applied Behavior Analysis, working with our students who are identified with autism. OT is Occupational Therapy, PT is Physical Therapy, and APE is Adaptive Physical Education. And we have the numbers at the top there for the students. We have an average of 11% this year, 16-17, for the total percentage of students with special needs in our district. These are students who are identified, eligible for services, and they have what's called an IEP, Individualized Educational Plan, that defines and describes the services to meet their special needs. The average for students with special needs in the districts across San Mateo County is 10 to 12%, give or take each district, so we fall right in the middle. Just to give the board clarity though, last year we were at the high end of 10%. So I believe that spike in the RSP count pushed us up to 11%. Okay, so what does the department do in special education? We are very involved with a system called SACE. This is Special Education Information System. This is all the data, confidential data, that is around a child's IEP, the plan. All service providers have access to SACE, and there's much documentation on there, including assessment results, academic scores, notes from IEP meetings that we hold annually, so forth. We also, in the special ed department, have quarterly special ed team meetings. So we pull everybody together, teachers, the case managers, school psychologists, all the service providers. Both Jen and I as administrators sit with the team. And we provide different types of professional development. It might be academic, or it might be on whatever we consider like a hot topic. For example, new legislation came out around dyslexia. We wanted all of our department to be well informed, so we brought in a presenter that went over that. SACE is constantly updated each year, the SACE program. So we're constantly having professional development around that as well, keeping our staff updated on how to maneuver SACE properly. We monitor the special education budgets. We always look at staffing, what is the projected enrollment, and how does that impact our staffing for the upcoming year, both certificated and classified. We have a wonderful group called Special Education Parent Advisory Committee, otherwise known as CPAC. This originated approximately 10 years ago. And the committee now meets on a quarterly basis. And the purpose of the committee now is to keep parents informed and keep them up to date with special education trends, laws, information. And then the big ticket item is keeping our special education services in compliance, making sure that we are meeting all the regulations, both federal and state. And SACE is a program, again, that keeps us in compliance. It's a monitoring system that we're checking weekly as a department. So what are the programs we have in Pacifica for special education? We have, as I mentioned, the Resource Specialist Program, RSP. We have this program on every campus in our district. And again, the child can be pulled out from their general ed class, or the RSP staff will push in. The services can be in small group or individually. And at IBL, for several years now, we've had an intensive intervention model where students are broken up into groups of a 1:4 14 ratio, teacher to student ratio. And they attend anywhere from 1 to 3 periods a day with special education staff. These are students that are approximately 2 to 3 grade levels below. That type of model, intensive intervention, is only at IBL, but IBL is now moving towards a more traditional model going into the 17-18 school year, where our special education staff will push into the students' general ed classrooms and work alongside of them and support the general education learning that's occurring. We also have special day classes. We have 5 classes that we title mild to moderate at Ortega, Sunset Ridge, and IBL. And we have 3 special day classes titled moderate to severe at Cabrillo and Ocean Shore.
Okay, and then we have our 3 preschool classes. 2 of our classes are located at Lindemar Educational Center. And those classes are designed more for kids who need a smaller setting that's enclosed. And then we have our preschool setting, our preschool class at Sunset Ridge. And that's for our students who are getting ready to transition to kindergarten, so they're closer to the age of 4, and who are ready to start being on that bigger campus and start doing more mainstreaming. All 3 of the classes are cross-categorical, so we blend the classes when they're this young. And then as they move into kindergarten, we start separating them out a little bit more. And then our middle school milieu, we're going to talk about a little bit later in the presentation and highlight that program.
Okay. And then San Mateo County Office of Education houses classrooms on districts across the county. And in the past, we've had anywhere up to 3 classrooms on our campuses in Pacifica School District. This year, we only had 1. It's for grades 6 or 8, currently housed at IBL, our middle school, and it's for the population titled Severely Multiple Disabled. Going into next year, we will be housing another county classroom here at Valamar School next door to us for grades 5 through 8, and the county has titled that class Behavior Management Special Day Class. The county classrooms are staffed with county employees and monitored and managed by county administration. But they do take opportunities to integrate with our Pacifica School District student population.
Okay, and then Extended School Year, or ESY, is our summer school program for students in the special day classes who have a little bit of trouble maintaining skills over breaks, so they need that ongoing education to maintain the skills that they've learned during the school year. We have 6 classes serving pre-K through 8. And it's a really fun opportunity for teachers to collaborate. It's the only time that we have all the classes on one campus, so that's a really great time for people to get together and even do some planning for the next school year.
And finally, other services provided through special education are our school psychology team. We have 4 full-time school psychologists. We have a part-time adaptive physical education teacher. Now, she's employed full-time through our district, but we also share her with San Bruno Park School District. So they fund 40% of her contract, and we fund 60%. We have 2 full-time occupational therapists. One is contracted out. Well, they're both contracted out currently, but I'm very excited to say that one of them will become a Pacifica School District employee next year, and the other one will remain contracted out. We have 4 speech language pathologists. One of them is a district employee. The other 3 are contracted out. A full-time speech language assistant, and this is like a instructional assistant, but it supports the speech therapist in the work that he or she does. And we have 2 part-time physical therapists. So they're both 1 day a week, and they serve different campuses in our district. And then we have a full-time mental health counselor serving grades, population, the middle school population. And so Jen is going to highlight one of our special ed programs. We call it the Middle School Milieu, and it's at Ingrid B. Lacey.
Okay, and part of this highlight is just a glimpse of a presentation that the teacher of the class made, and she presented this at SELPA. So it was very well received through the governing board of SELPA. So our teacher is Louise Southwick, and she has been working in the class for the past 2 years. She comes with a wealth of knowledge and has a couple kids of her own who have been in the district. It's supported by a paraprofessional. We have a mental health therapist on campus 3 days a week, and then the school psychologist is there the days that the mental health therapist is not on campus. There's an art therapist who comes in, and currently we have 8 to 10 students who are in the class, and they're students who are internalizers. So we don't see acting out behaviors in these classes, but more of the kids who are keeping it inside. Okay, so the main goal of the class is to get students to be in the general education environment as much as possible. So Louise really tries to align the curriculum with what is being learned in the general education setting. Most of the students are mainstreamed for at least a portion of their day, and then the needed supports are embedded throughout the day, such as art therapy. They have a little community garden right outside of their classroom that they go to. And then the students in this class benefit from that consistent mental health support. So it's really something that's built into their day every day. And it's through these mental health providers, but also just through the curriculum and through the class meetings that they have daily, so that it's really creating a safe space for students to come into every day. Okay. And being on IBL campus, they already have used a really restorative approach to learning. Part of their daily routine is just to do a check-in. So before they start their class, they all sit together in a circle and just check in on how they're feeling, what happened last night, how are you coming to school this morning, and then work through that throughout the day. And they take a pulse throughout the day of kind of how each of the students are doing. And then it's very individualized. So each of the students have their own reinforcement systems. They might have their own behavioral system, areas that they might use to cool down, or tools that they might use if they're feeling anxious or upset.
So the successes of this program, the middle school milieu, have occurred over the past 3 years since its inception. And these are either individual or entire class. The most important one to me is the bottom one. We do have one case of a student that actually exited the milieu program while in the milieu program and was able to go back into the mainstream general education program. And that's always the goal, to provide strategies that work towards that least restrictive environment. We currently have the majority of the students enrolled in the class are Pacifica School District students, but this program is well known now throughout the north end of the county, and we often get referrals from other school districts to place children into this program, including next year. Okay, we're going to head into student services. So what is the function of the department? It's to monitor, again, compliance. Laws are constantly changing around pupil services. We have legislation turning out every year where we're updating board policies and administrative regulations around pupil services. So we need to stay on top of that and make sure that our district is compliant. We, in student services, are the hub when there is a concern or a complaint from staff, community, parents, and the ultimate goal is to come up with resolution, and so that it is a win-win for all parties involved. And we have the wonderful lottery process that is embedded in our enrollment process, and we do our kindergarten and 6th grade lotteries after the new year, and we like to do it seamlessly without any mistakes, and we hope that everybody gets the choices that they've taken the time to research and strive for. So student services oversees those lotteries. And then this year, we have really put a focus on the enhancement of the social emotional learning that's going on in the district. In the past, I've referred to this design right here that I'll speak to a little bit later. So response to intervention is a piece of our social emotional learning. Specifically tonight, I'm talking about the social emotional learning side of this triangle. And there's 3 tiers, and again, this triangle is right behind me, but the description over here on the slide tonight is more specific to Pacifica School District. So tier 1 is pretty much, it takes the village. You know, everybody that's on campus that's focusing on the needs of the children socially, emotionally. Includes, of course, the classroom teachers, administration, and we're very fortunate to have a collaboration with youth services bureaus, and they call their interns trainees, and we get them placed on our campuses. Every campus has one, some have two, and the trainees are working their hours. They're supervised by a licensed clinician, and we have them focus on some of our small groups, social groups. Tier 2 gets a little bit more focused. This is our school psychologist team, our mental health counselor, and our wonderful 6th through 8th grade middle school counselors, and they have more targeted interventions. Specifically the mental health counselor as well, because she's providing a service that's on the child's IEP. And then Tier 3 is intensive intervention. And so it could be specific program support. I mentioned special day class. Jen talked about the milieu. That's a perfect example of a Tier 3 intervention. It could also be recommending a child for a non-public school or services provided from an outside agency. So again, the enhancement of social emotional learning in Pacifica School District. What this chart represents is we've done a really good job of providing district-wide positive behavior intervention supports, activities throughout the year, for example, our no bullying campaign, things like that, school climate teams. But those happen sporadically throughout the year. The push and the focus going into the 17-18 school year is to provide SEL activities embedded within the instructional day so it happens consistently every day throughout the 180 days of the school year. So we will be providing professional development as we launch off the 17-18 school year in August, and working with our classroom teachers and support staff to focus on that. And what I'm referring to here and what's on the slide are the 5 competencies of social emotional learning. So we created, with our wonderful curriculum specialists and lead teachers at our different school sites, a social emotional learning reference guide. This is just one snapshot of a page out of the reference guide, but it gives you an idea that a teacher can go to this guide. Maybe they're thinking about creating health-related lessons, and this, I believe, is 1st grade. And so they are going to have a health lesson, and maybe that week they're focusing on self-management. So they know exactly which lessons tie into the competency for social emotional learning with self-management. So this guide is a tool for our classroom teachers to use to enhance their lesson plans, embedding social emotional learning. And the guide is very thick. It's by grade level, kindergarten all the way up to 8th grade across those core standard areas. So another thing that Student Services monitors is chronic absenteeism and suspensions. This is one of our LCAP, it's embedded within one of our LCAP goals, Goal 3. And we do a variety of strategies, best practices across the district. Both Will and I oversee what's called the Learning Support Team. This consists of Jennifer Gray, our vice principals, assistant principals, a couple of our curriculum specialists, because we're looking at data. When we meet with the Learning Support Team, we're constantly monitoring data, and specifically around absenteeism and suspensions for this presentation, but the Learning Support Team also monitors academic data. So next steps, as we go into the 17-18 school year, we'll continue with the mental health counselor that is funded through SELPA grant monies and partially funded by the district. We will have the county programs in Pacifica School District, adding that one program, as I mentioned, to Valamar. We are working in collaboration with the San Mateo County Office of Ed and Behavior Health Recovery Services in what's called the Suicide Toolkit Protocol. I believe I presented this to the board a few board sessions ago. That training is going to be on the Monday before we begin the school year, and we will be training up all of our crisis teams on campus, which includes administration, targeted teachers, and of course our mental health staff. And I just talked about enhancing the core standards with social emotional learning competencies. And then, just a friendly reminder, that Jen and I are changing our titles as we go into the 17-18 school year. So definitely much more of a focus. My title will be Executive Director of Integrated Services. So again, that includes special education and student services. And Jen will be the Program Supervisor over Behavior and Related Services. Related services are OT and PT, along with our behaviorists. And that's it. Gotta love those smiles, huh? Any questions?
Well, I'll lead it off. Under the Resource Specialist Program, the intensive intervention model, you said they're moving to a traditional model, so that class is being, there won't be the 1 to 14 class anymore, is that what you're saying?
Correct.
Okay, so
what it will entail is each resource specialist teacher has a caseload up to 28 students. And we have one resource specialist that focuses on the English language arts and one that focuses on math and other skill areas. So they won't have students coming to them in a class. They will now, along with their paraprofessional staff, go into the general ed classes, work alongside the kids, most definitely at the onset of when the lesson is being given. They may pull the kids into a smaller group for when the kids are doing independent practice. But for the most part, they will be in the general ed classroom supporting the instruction that's being delivered.
because that's quite a change.
Yes.
Okay. On the other programs, talking about the IBL and the Valimar class from San Mateo County, we've addressed the whole open house issue.
Yes.
They're all aware of
Yes.
being there and being supportive of our families.
Yes.
Thank you. Sorry. Okay, that you answered. My last is on the LCAP Goal 3, chronic absenteeism and suspensions. One of the focuses that I don't see addressed in this, and maybe it's wrapped in something else, is the parent component. Because at this age, sometimes absenteeism is family related. So I'm wondering how that is addressed.
Definitely.
Is it addressed?
So wanting to take a proactive approach always, right? So we can prevent before, so we don't have to react to a chronic absenteeism or attendance issue. There's been a variety of approaches done in the past few years. What we have found result-oriented is when there's a specific focus on a specific targeted group. So first and foremost, we take the students that have 10% or more absenteeism, and we deem that as chronic absenteeism. And we have specific staff that will address that outside of the classroom. So thank you for our vice principals of guidance and learning. This definitely sits on their desk along with our assistant principals. And as I mentioned earlier, Will and I meet with them on a monthly basis for what we call the learning support team. We deliver them the data. They know exactly what their target population is. And an example of doing some type of parent ed is they call them and they bring them into the school site. And they have those face-to-face conversations. Most importantly, just to collaborate and trying to find out what is the root of the problem that's preventing the child in coming. Also, in reviewing the data, we've noticed that, and I presented this at the beginning of the school year to the board, one of our grade levels that has the largest attendance problem is TK and K. So, and again, it's probably not the TK or K students issue of why, preventing them from coming to school. So we are going to have a whole attendance educational component at their orientations. And when you mentioned kickoff to kindergarten orientation, I was thinking, oh, that was a missed opportunity, but
I gave that.
you talked about attendance too? Thank you. So that's capturing a very receptive audience, right, at that point, and really stressing to them the importance of attendance. And that we don't want to send a message early on in a child's life that it's okay to miss a few days if they're not sick or, an unforeseen circumstance, but they're missing a few days to do something that might be fun or something family related. So those meetings will occur, but we also have the student attendance review board policies that we follow. And that's a more reactive process. That's when there's been such a chronic or absenteeism or truancy issue that we have to start monitoring and sending letters, and it's more of a punitive process. We try not to have to use that, but in some cases we do. But with the SAR process, there is a parent component that educates the parents. And we collaborate with the County Office of Ed on that.
Thank you.
Just a few highlights.
Any other comments or questions?
So, the new special ed model will, so a child that's, has an IEP that's in a regular classroom, what kind of access to support will they actually get? Do they get an education specialist? Do they get an instructional aide? Do they get, in the classroom you should have, what, 2.5? I mean, we're 10% special ed, so you should have a classroom of 25-ish.
2 to 3
2.5
kids.
to 3 kids.
Yeah. So they may get the education specialist, the certificated staff member, or they may get the paraprofessional that is trained up and following the lead of the education specialist. But bottom line, the education specialist is their case manager. So that person is meeting with all the gen ed teachers of the child with an IEP.
Okay, so they wouldn't necessarily be in the classroom, they would just be supporting the teachers and supporting the students?
There will be some individual from special education supporting the targeted students, but it may or may not be a teacher. It might be the paraprofessional under the guidance of the teacher.
Is that going to mean that we're employing more paraprofessionals?
Well, at this point, in looking at the projected enrollment, and we've broken out each period of the day and where our students with IEPs fall within the range, at this point, we don't need to. Yeah, we're able to cover it with, so we're talking 6 staff members, so 2 certificated staff, 4 paraprofessional staff, and then we have the 2 special day class teachers provide study skills throughout the day. So for some of our RSP students who are at 2 grade levels below, they would go to those study skills for their elective. So a little extra reinforcement.
Ray, just going back to the successes of the milieu, I think you kind of underestimated some of you went straight to the goal, which is obviously to get students completely integrated into the general education, mainstreaming them. But you also have increased in inclusive activities. So can you speak a little bit about your progress there? Because I think that's probably where you saw a lot of success that we should all hear about.
So purposefully placing that program at Ingrid B. Lacey, where we could get the biggest bang for our buck with 6th, 7th, and 8th grade middle school component there. The students in Louise's class, all but I can think of one at this point for this school year, was mainstream integrated into some general education classroom and or general education activities, so that they had that social interaction with their age-appropriate peers.
Great.
Yeah, and many of these students arrive to the milieu program possibly from another special day class environment that's more segregated, that doesn't give that opportunity. So that's where we definitely see the success.
It's huge. That's huge, right? And the hope is that they get as far as they can into being completely integrated, right?
Right.
So.
And our hope is that we're equipping them with a skill set academically, socially, as they roll into their high school years.
Great.
Yeah.
I think the only other thing that I wanted to say is that statement is really, really brilliant.
The inclusion definition.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm going to take that to some of my colleagues. So, look.
Great.
Thank you.
So if I could just have a final comment, and the whole aspect of the special education department is obviously, very intricate, et cetera. And I do want to say that through our SACE, we do have that monitored through the state, and our compliance percentages is so high. I mean, I do not think this year we had any issues at all.
Knock on wood.
Or any findings, I
Right.
guess. So, I mean, I really have to compliment the special education department. And I feel like our students are being served so well within our school sites, so included based on our definition, and they live it and breathe it all the time. The other thing I'd like to comment on is, as we looked at goal 3 about the reduction of suspension, the reduction of chronic absenteeism, we'll be talking about the expulsion, because that's one thing that we also had to include in the LCAP as a state indicator. And we didn't, because we have 0. And so we just said 0, 0, 0, that's our metric. And again, I think by the Student Services Department, Ray and its principals working well together, and with our learning support team, we're able to kind of keep that conversation going on how do you handle this, or what could you do for this, and that collaboration, I think, has allowed us to continue to move forward into that positive direction of being more proactive than reactive for our students. So I think the hard work of integrated services, LMEC, and our inclusion model up at Sunset Ridge with our preschool has worked fabulously. And it doesn't happen just because. It happens because of the great work of Jen and staff. And so we really thank them.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. 9D, Local Control Accountability Plan, Goal Governance. Will?
It's me. Okay, let me get this up here. All right, so we're bringing to the board the recommendation to adopt our local control accountability plan. On June 7th, it was at our last board meeting, it was brought to the public for comment and any recommendations. From there was no comments or recommendations that were brought forward at that time. Since then, we've had one last review from the San Mateo County Office of Education, and Wendy touched on this. There were a couple of things that we had to adjust. One of them is we had to put in our matrix we had to add expulsion, even though we looked past it because we don't have it. But we had to add it there so that it's represented. The other thing is we have our student and parent surveys we're creating a baseline in 17-18, but they asked us also to put targets for the other time. So I had to put language in there saying targets will be established when baseline is established for 18-19 and 19-20. So besides those two things that were added, it's pretty much the same document that we had talked about at the June 7th meeting. So again, it's recommended for the board to approve the LCAP.
Any comments, questions? Other than thank you, everyone, for all of your work.
And there will be a new one.
Yes.
I know there
There's gonna be a
will.
new
So
one.
looking forward to it. Okay, this is an action item. If there are no questions or comments, would someone like to make a motion to approve our LCAP? Okay, second.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Board passes 5-0, thank you.
Thank you. 9E, adoption of the 2017-2018 budget, goal governance. Josie?
So the budget was also reviewed on May 31st with the board in this full study session with the LCAP. And then again, there was a public hearing on the budget last Wednesday, June 7th. The budget has had no changes. The budget is aligned with the LCAP. And then as Will mentioned, the county did have another final review. And some of the things they did was check to see if the LCAP numbers were in the budget. And so they've done that preliminary review of the budget. And once we submit this to the county, they'll do their full review. And then when the state adopts their budget, we'll look to see where there are significant changes. And then we'll look at our staffing and our final expenditures and bring a revised budget back to the board in the fall.
Any questions or comments on the budget? Other than we'd like more money to be in it, but that's not our problem. Okay, this is an action item. Is there a motion to adopt the 2017-18 budget? Second? All in favor?
Board passes 5-0, thank you.
Thank you. 9F, bid results, roof projects, LCAP goal operations. Josie?
Okay, tonight we're asking the board to authorize staff to enter into a contract for the Cabrillo lobby area roofing. We went through the formal bid process for several roofing projects, and you can see the bid results there. The Cabrillo lobby will be about $42,000. We also looked at the portables because the portables after the heavy rains were just, you could see the leaks and water infiltration. But the bids came in quite high. And so now we need to kind of do a cost analysis, and we're looking at our facilities master plan. So $80,000 for the roofs or $100,000 seems really high for a portable building, and the buildings are very old, and so would it behoove us to buy new buildings and include this as part of our facility master planning rather than to move forward on the roofs at this time? So we're not asking the board to authorize us to move forward with IBL or Sunset Ridge portables, just the Cabrillo lobby area, which we can complete this summer.
Questions or comments?
So what makes Western roofing so much more competitive? Is Pioneer offering something that Western is not?
For the Cabrillo, it's not too big of a difference, but it's how they write their bids, maybe with their subcontractors, or I'm not sure of the location of these contractors.
Sure.
It's really hard to determine without going through and looking at their subcontractor list and the materials list. And
Well, just wondering, and have we done business with either of these?
Western Roofing sounds familiar to me. It sounds like I've never heard of Pioneer contractors before, but we do follow public contract code, and which John Hashizumi has reviewed the bids and made sure that they're complete and they have all the bonding and insurance.
Sure.
We are bound to
Okay.
accept the lowest bidder or to reject all bids.
Sure. I mean, don't get me wrong, I want the cheapest bid. I always wonder, if you look at for all the buildings, it's 26 grand difference.
Right,
So,
it's always tough when you do bids
know.
to kind of see, it's nice when you have more bids and then you can kind of see where they group.
Yeah.
But when you just have two, it's a little bit
Yeah.
tougher.
Any other questions or comments? You look like you're pondering. No?
No,
Oh, okay.
I'm good.
Okay. Then this is an action item. So is there a motion to approve Western Roofing for the Cabrillo project?
Motion to approve.
Thank you. Second? Second? All in favor?
Board passes 5-0, thank you.
Thank you. 9G, resolution number 2017-06-14A, Education Protection Account, Goal Operations. Josie.
Okay, a couple years ago when Prop 30 passed, the state did create an Education Protection Account, EPA, and when you look at our budget slides, you can see the pie chart, and these funds are set aside separately to account for it separately. And part of the requirement is that the board pass a resolution of how the funds are being spent. And so attached are the spreadsheets for 16-17 and also for 17-18. It's all being spent on teachers' salaries. And this will be posted on our website, per the requirements from CDE.
Questions or comments? Okay, this is an action item. Is there a motion to approve resolution number 2017-06-14A?
Motion to approve.
Second? All in favor?
Board passes 5-0, thank you.
9H, Local Education Agency Plan Revision, Goal Governance. Will?
Yes, so what's being presented for approval is an update of the LEAP, which is the Local Educational Agency Plan. Goal 2 has been revised to update to reflect the LCAP. So back in 2014-15, with support of San Mateo County Office of Education, the networks, we were able to identify goals and actions that from the Pacifica School District Local Control Accountability Plan that fulfilled the Title I program improvement compliance requirements. So, but LEAP is going to be going through kind of a transition now because they're going to be more aligned with the LCAP. But because of federal compliances, we need to make sure that it doesn't replace it. It can't replace it because the LEAP is connected to federal funding while the LCAP is connected to state funding. So to avoid any kind of duplication, the State Board of Education has integrated the requirements of LCAP and LEAP whenever possible. So from what I hear, it's going to be more of a collective document, but it's not going to replace it. There's going to be like a collective document between the two. So what you have in front of you is a revised Goal 2 version of the LEAP for approval.
Why do we keep doing this?
The LEA plan is kind of, isn't it obsolete at this point?
Not Goal 2?
It's and the sticking point, talking to San Mateo County Office of Education, which I'm taking the lead on with as far as what this should be, we should be including in our LEA plan each year. They've talked about how because of the federal funding that's connected to it, it need to happen. But he couldn't really tell me what exactly it's going to look like because he doesn't know, but he knows it's going to be different. So it might be one collective document that has 2 sections. That'll include a LEAP section, a LEA plan section. So.
Which would be nicer. That would be
Yes,
improved,
I would be all for that.
So I had a question, actually, if you can remind us, actually going back to Goal 1, even though we're looking at Goal 2. We had a strategy of increasing teacher prep time, which was at no cost, and it was a study only at that point. Can you remind me what the outcomes were of that?
Well, it's almost like a continual process of continuing to look for opportunities to provide prep time. The music program is allotted that for us, and it's grown. So we're allowing a 3rd grade. So the word study, it's a continual study because we're continuing to try to find ways to provide well-deserved prep time for our elementary in particular.
Okay. So, okay. I'm just wondering if it's continuing, why aren't we extending that date then?
Well, I think it's because it was in Goal 1, so there was no revisions made in Goal 1.
Okay.
I'm.
But we are
Yeah.
actually continuing it. Okay.
We're continuing.
It's in our LCAP.
Right. Okay. Anyone else? No? Okay, this is an action item. So is there a motion to approve the LEAP revision.
I will move to approve the LEA plan as presented.
Thank you. Second?
I will second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Board passes 5-0, thank you.
9I, approval of resolution number 2017-6-14-B, declaration of official intent to reimburse certain expenditures from proceeds of indebtedness, goal operations. Josie.
So based on our discussions on May 31st regarding facilities, and then again tonight, just thinking about moving forward with a bond, this is preparing us in the event that the board does decide to move forward with a bond next year in 2018. There is the ability to reimburse the funds from this summer, for example, the roofing projects and some of the flooring projects from the GEO bond proceeds. And so by passing this resolution, it gives us the option in the future, if there was a GEO bond, to be able to be reimbursed.
Questions?
So do we just kind of in general say that we want to reimburse, or do we have to be very specific about which things we're going to reimburse from the bonds and which things?
Well, once we, figure out the surveying and the bond and what the bond is for, if it falls within those categories, then it would be able to be reimbursed at that time, a year from now.
Okay, is there a motion to approve resolution number 2017-6-14-B? Okay, second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Board passes 5-0, thank you.
9J, resolution 2017-6-14C, board compensation for missed meeting. Wendy?
So, per board bylaw 9250, a member may be compensated for meetings that he's missed. Resolution 2017-0614C is for Kathy Shiakari, who is absent at the June 7th, 2000 board meeting due to a hardship deemed acceptable to the board.
Questions, comments?
Elizabeth did a very nice job today.
Yeah, I heard. Okay, is there a motion to approve resolution 2017-6-14C?
Approved.
Second? All in favor?
Board passes 4-0, one abstention. Trustee Shiakari.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Future agenda items.
Okay, so at our last board meeting, we decided to cancel both the July 12th and the August 2nd meeting. So our next meeting will be August 23rd. Oops, 2017, not 3. Yeah. Yeah, that's far. That's far away. So, and at this time, I don't see any modifications. I would say, and it'll be based on the committees that when we get together, but we are probably looking at potentially a work study with the board on, I want to say September 6th. Our next meeting would be the 13th, but on the 6th, we would be able to give you a report out of the survey results on a work study basis.
Okay. Then we are adjourned at 8:32. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's September 6th.
Be seeing you tomorrow?
Yes, I will be there. I'm nervous.
Do we think that'll be an?
Usually 6.
It'll be at 6. Will we finish early? Oh, start, usually 6. Is that okay? Okay.
To me, it's a lot easier.
You slacker.
Like left going, we'll just leave it for
It's amazing.
There should be resolutions, right?
Yeah.
Suzanne, is there anything for us to sign?
$3,017, yes.
Yeah, we'll sign it in 2017.
Yes, when we go back.
Now you can go to the rest, Will.
Oh,
It's too bad you couldn't
do you,
arrange for.
you know, I use those water things.
That just dropped off.
I know. I know.
Well, yeah, that's why we're gonna start. Today was graduation, I want to carry it into graduation.
Oh, why not?
I'm gonna get hold of that.
It's fun time here.
Oh, is that right?
I know, I need it.
We need a funnel.
So Elizabeth, I
Yes.
took
Okay,
advantage of the county park this last Saturday.
Oh, did you?
I did the hike over Montero Mountain down to
Nice.
the state beach.
Okay.
And I was sore for like 2 days because it's like 5 miles. I could do 5 miles. It's 2.5 up and 2.5 down and no flat at all, you know. But it is so beautiful.
Did you get a ride back from the beach or?
Yeah,
Usually my
we-
kids will end up calling going, "Can you come again?"
So the deal is that the boys had swim lessons down at Le Petit. So Nika
You
picked me
went
up
there,
on the way.
okay.
But I overshot. I was trying to get to Gray Whale Cove, and I couldn't. I didn't see the marker or whatever, so I made it all the way to Montero. But it was. But it's pretty sweet because you get the views of Pacifica going up, and then you get the other side of Sappy Bay and Montero.
It's an amazing
And
trail.
if you do the hazelnut one back there, well, one of them has a waterfall.
Yeah, it's-
Yes.
Hazelnut or trout farm, might be trout farm.
So that's